The Secrets of Star Trek is brought to you by the Star Quest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to The Secrets of Star Trek, where we discuss the hidden layers and deeper meanings found in all the Star Trek TV, series, movies, and more. And today it's a very special after-school special episode of... no, not an after-school special. A special episode of The Secrets of Star Trek. This is our 200th episode, and it just happens to fall around the time of April 1st. So we thought it would be fun to do a fun episode because we're discussing Picard on either end of this in 199 and 201, but we're going to give you a special treat. We're going to talk about the worst Star Trek episodes ever.
Yeah, because like for our 100th anniversary, our 100th episode, we did the best, if I recall correctly.
Yes.
And Dom, you've got a very interesting idea of what fun is if we're going to talk about the worst episodes.
I have heard from listeners that they always enjoy when we have a rants. so many of them enjoy our rants and ravings, especially when we're laughing about it as we rant. And so I think that would be the about the how this is going to turn out. So just to go through the formalities, I'm Dom Bettinelli. And joining me today on the panel are Father Cory Sticha. Hi, Father Cory.
How's it going, Dom?
Very well, thanks. And Jimmy Akin. Hi, Jimmy.
Howdy, Don.
Folks, so be sure to follow The Secrets of Star Trek. If this is your first episode with us, welcome. It's going to be a weird one. This is not how they usually go, but you can follow us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, everywhere you get podcasts. We're also on our YouTube channel, our StarQuest YouTube channel. And if you like this, you might like another show on the StarQuest network, like The Secrets of Star Wars, which is at sqpn.com/Star Wars. So I'm not going to ask for a recap, Jimmy. There's nothing to recap here. So let's get into it. We've each made a list of the worst. I don't know if I've ranked them the worst. It would be hard, I think, to rank them the worst. But we're going to read through our lists, and then we'll have a discussion of the various ones that show up there. And just as a precursor, we decided to limit ourselves to discussing the worst episodes in the pre-Paramount Plus era. So not Discovery, not Picard, not Lower Decks, not Prodigy, but anything up to the time of Enterprise.
Yeah, because Discovery itself would just consume too many slots on the 10 worst list.
Right. Let's just I think for my sake, I gave Discovery honorable mention on the list and left it at that. So we go with that. So why don't we start with you, Father Cory? Why don't you give us your list and maybe a little bit about to remind us what there may be things you don't list because you haven't seen all of every season.
Right. So I purposely stuck with the TNG, DS9, Voyager, and Enterprise era of Star Trek because I'm still learning about TOS. I'm still learning about the animated series. What I've seen so far really I wouldn't describe as being on this list anyways. So I'm reserving that for Dom and Jimmy, who know those era better. And what I did is I picked couple episodes from each of those series. And I limited myself. I can only do one from the first season of each episode or each series, because otherwise it would just be a list of here's 2 or 3 episodes from TNG from the first season and so on down the list. So I've tried to stretch them out between the different seasons and everything. And when we look at TNG, and unfortunately both of them are Wesley episodes, which isn't a surprise because I am one of the least fans of Wesley. I'm not a fan of his character at all. They have kind of redeemed him a little bit, but the first one I picked was
until the Ready Room. Right. And in the Ready Room, Will Wheaton becomes insufferably enthusiastic about everything.
True.
Yeah, I'll agree with that too. I liked Will Wheaton on Eureka. He was just sarcastic and kind of a jerk, and it was fun. But the first one I picked is from first season. It's Justice. It's the episode where Wesley Crusher stomps on a plant and they want to kill him, and all the fans are like, please, 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 please.
Right.
And then the other one is another Wesley episode, The Game, where we see the wormhole frisbee thing that everybody's addicted to except Wesley and his crush, who happens to be Ashley Judd. Another
not just Wesley's crush.
Was that?
Not just Wesley.
True.
I was a teenager watching that, so yeah.
No, so I mean, both those are just Wesley is being annoying, and of course he's the hero of the day, and they really kind of represent all the TNG episodes where Wesley is annoying and he's the hero of the day. But those are the two I picked out for there. Moving to DS9, the first season one I picked up is one that we're going to be talking about somewhat soon, The Storyteller, where O'Brien has to save a planet by telling stories. And it's just painful episode. Then later on in DS9, you've got Meridian, which is you have the phase shifting planet that Dax falls in love with a guy from and tries to save him and can't. And now she has to mourn for 70 years, even though, well, I guess she will, just under another host. So that they find this planet that just happens to phase back into reality right in front of the Defiant, and Dax is there trying to help them stay in our reality, and goes from there. So just really a painful episode. Going into another DS9 one was Resurrection, and this is one of the Mirror Universe episodes, which in general I kind of like the DS9 Mirror Universe episodes, but this one in particular I don't like because it brings back Bareil. And I was never a fan of Bareil's character, and he's even more annoying in this one than any of the other Mirror Universe ones. And he basically comes into our universe and kidnaps Kira to pretend to be the whatever her Mirror Universe counterpart was, the intendant. Yeah. So it was again, this is my least favorite of the Mirror Universe episodes. And then my final, I ended up picking for DS9, and that's probably because DS9 is my favorite, as I know it is of the other two. I ended up picking 4 of the bad ones from there just because I like the whole series. But the fourth one is Prophet and Lace. And this is probably one of the weakest of the Ferengi episodes, and Quark becomes a woman. And a very stereotypical, almost insulting image of a woman. Because of course, his Moogie, his mother is rebelling against Ferengi society and all that, and Quark needs to fill in for her as a woman, and it's just not good. The Ferengi episodes are usually pretty good. This one wasn't.
That's one where there are a lot of people who don't like that one, but I don't have the same reaction to Prophet and Lace. I mean, it's not my favorite. There are lots better episodes, including better Ferengi episodes, but I'm able to accept this is cartoon. Star Trek here, in essence. This is an episode where it's deliberately over the top ridiculous.
Right. So, yeah. But moving on to Voyager, we had to pick Phage, the hollow long Neelix. And of course, it is the episode where we get to find out more about the Vidians, but the Neelix in the sick bay was just too annoying. It was hard to handle him. And then the other Voyager episode I picked was Tattoo. And this is a kind of a representative episode more than it is the episode itself. But that Tattoo is Chakotay finds a planet where it's got an image that he knows from his childhood as a Native American image, and he meets a race of aliens that have the same tattoo he does, and it's because there's some great aliens that have been watching over the Native Americans and watching over this species, and it's a representative episode of how badly they handle Native American spirituality in the character of Chakotay.
Yeah, notice they never even tell us what tribe he's from or what general Native American culture he's from. It's just Chakotay's tribe. Well,
and you look through the wiki, the Memory Alpha wiki on Chakotay's character, and they changed it like 4 times. He was going to be Sioux at one point. He was going to be Hopi. He was going to be some Central American or Southern American Native. They changed it about 4 times before they just went, he's just a nondescript Native American. he's somebody.
Which is sort of condescending in and of itself.
Yeah, it's like
exactly.
Everybody from Africa is the same, or everybody from Europe is the same, or everybody from Asia is the same. It's like, no, there are cultural differences on every continent.
Big ones.
Yeah, and Native Americans are very clear that there's rivalries between tribes, even if a lot of them are kind of intermarried now, but there's still there's these two tribes on a reservation, and it's us versus them, even though they're my cousin because I'm married to their, aunt or something like that, So I mean, it is insult. That's part of the insult too. Yeah, absolutely.
I remember years ago, I was hanging out with a bunch of Native American construction workers, and it's like the Apache guy did not get much respect from the others.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. Finally, for Enterprise, we've got Unexpected. This is Pregnant Trip. Yeah. And just again, another just painful episode just for that aspect right there. I mean, it was just painful. And then I had to pick for the last one. These Are the Voyages, the final Enterprise episode, the most insulting way that they could have closed off that series, with the whole series of Enterprise basically being a holodeck adventure by Troy and Riker. And of course you got Killing Off Trip, which is also why they made that choice, I don't know. But the fact that it was just the whole series was just Riker and Troy going in the holodeck.
And we don't even get to hear the Archer speech at the end, which wasn't even the founding of the Federation speech.
Right. So it was just such a, and the worst part is that fourth season is the strongest season of Enterprise, in my opinion. They were really going places, and of course, then it got canceled, so that doesn't matter. But then you end it with this. So that had to be the last one on my list.
Okay.
Yeah. Dom, why don't you go next?
Okay. So I'm going to start with the original series episode, Spock's Brain. This is the infamous third season of the original series, which had lots of candidates. But I only chose one from that whole season because it would have been, I had others I wanted from other series. But Spock's Brain just had so many problems of like piloting Spock's body with a prosthetic, and it just didn't work. It didn't work at all. So I even as a kid, I thought it was a dumb premise. I have plenty from TNG, 2 from the first season, one which I know Jimmy's going to pick. Well, we might pick all of these, but I gotta pick Angel 1. So cringy, so very cringy, like Picard as boy toy. I mean, not sorry, Riker as boy toy. It was just I can still picture Riker wearing that open vest thing, and it's too much. Code of Honor, which is another very cringy episode, both patronizing to African cultures, but also just weird. First season Gene Roddenberry TNG weirdness. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then
I purposely left Code of Honor off just because I knew it was going to be on your guys' list.
Yeah, thank you.
Or I figured it would be.
Yeah, and then it's got to be Sub Rosa. Just the worst. The Beverly Crusher exploring her heritage and ends up in a romantic liaison with a ghost, and it was
and it doesn't just involve addictive ghost sex. It involves addictive ghost sex with the ghost that was having addictive ghost sex for years with her grandmother.
Right.
Wow, is that cringe?
Yeah. It is so creepy, so bad. Who thought this was a good idea? So those were my TNG picks. For Voyager, I picked one, actually. I could have picked more, but I picked one because it is the worst. It is Threshold. It is the episode where
oh yes,
where Picard or not Picard, where Janeway and Tom Paris get turned into salamanders and have salamander sex and have salamander babies.
Yeah.
Yes,
I've started to detect a theme in my worst episodes list here. Actually, now that I look at it, whenever that Star Trek turns to weird sexual themes, that gets really bad.
Thanks, Gene Roddenberry.
Yeah. I also picked the Enterprise episode Unexpected. Again, weird, like, Trip becoming pregnant thing. That was we talked about that in a previous episode. Jimmy, I know you're going to pick this, so I'm sorry to steal this before you get to it, but A Night in Sick Bay is just the worst. It is, just nothing happens. It's just a scene. It's just one set. It's like the ultimate bottle episode where they're just sitting around in sick bay, talking at one another.
The sad part, you can do single set episodes well. This was not an example of that.
Yes, exactly.
No, if you want a good example of a single set episode, check out the bottle episode of Community.
right. Then I picked Move Along Home, even though when we rewatched it, we found things that we liked about it. It wasn't as bad in retrospect. It still resonates in me from having seen it all those years ago as this is one of the worst things. The hopscotch, the chanting, all that stuff just still gets to me. And then the DS9 episode, where is it? Let He Who Is Without Sin. And I was just looking for that again here. That's the one where they go to Risa, and it's Worf and Dax, and it's Bashir and Lita and Quark, and Worf is being stick in the mud. Like, right, the whole concept of Risa is just kind of a little bit creepy to begin with, but Worf is just being Mr. Stick in the Mud. He comes across as like fundamentalist about.
Well, and that's what this episode is a parody of, you have this group, I forget what they call themselves, but I don't think it's foundationalist, but you have this group of people on Risa who object to all the carnality on Risa, and they're a stand-in for the moral majority.
Yes. And that's one of the things that made it really so bad, was that you had very contemporary politics butting themselves into this in a way that was very preachy, very over the top. I mean, the title of the episode is a gospel reference, but also things like Lita and Bashir's weird breakup, we decided to break up, so we're going away on a romantic weekend to have one final like, why are you breaking up then? Like, it's just this like, it just was really a weird thing
to free Lita up to become Rom's wife.
Well, yeah. So they should have just broke up, and instead of having this weird, we're amicably separating. It's a very Hollywood sort of relationship breakup thing. It doesn't connect with any of my experience of life. And I'm going to guess with a lot of people. So, anyway, and then it shows the difficulties in the relationship between Worf and Dax, and his lack of comfort with her past, and there was all these very broad themes, and it just was very cringy. Did not like.
This is an example of why I hate it when people are like, "Ooh, science fiction is so great because it gets to comment on social issues," and I'm going, "No, that's not one of the things that's great about science fiction, because it usually does it badly."
That's right. Yes, it does. So that's I had 9. I kind of ran out of steam at number 9. But how about you, Jimmy? What does your list look like?
Well, I had 19, but but I have that's why I wanted you guys to go first, so I could largely eliminate the ones that you guys named. So mine will be mostly different. I divided mine. They're not ranked based on from best to worst. It would be subjective, and I'd have to put way more thought into it. So I just put them in series order. So starting with the original series, first season, The Alternative Factor. And if you don't remember that one, there's a good reason for it. It is eminently forgettable. This is the one, if you have seen it, where there's this guy named Lazarus who is like, there's a matter version of him and there's an antimatter version of him. And he shows up in this little flying saucer looking ship on a planet, and there's a good Lazarus and a bad Lazarus. One of them is good, one of them is bad, and they're locked in this eternal struggle with each other. The bad Lazarus wants to kill the good Lazarus, and the resolution is to trap both Lazaruses in this corridor between the matter universe and the antimatter universe so they can battle each other there forever. And that's a more coherent summary than what you hear in the episode. You watch the episode and a lot of it is just incomprehensible. And I've read about why. It's because they had script problems and they were revising the script as it was being filmed and stuff, and it just did not come together in the end. And so there's a lot of incoherence in the alternative factor. Yeah. Spock's Brain, I considered putting on the list, but it's written, and I'm looking forward to seeing it again because it's been a while. But Spock's Brain was written by Gene L. Kuhn. I believe he had to use a pseudonym for contractual reasons, but Gene Kuhn was one of the best writers on Star Trek. He was like the assistant producer for the first 2 seasons, and he was very good as a writer, and he wrote, and he was responsible for injecting a lot of comedy into the series that worked. And the behind the scenes story is that Spock's Brain was meant to be a parody episode. And so it was meant to be like The Trouble with Tribbles or something, that it was meant to be humorous. But then in the 3rd season, Gene Roddenberry quits as the showrunner, and Freddie Freiberg comes in, and he doesn't get Star Trek and doesn't get humor. And the argument is that this is botched, that it wasn't meant to be like this. So I thought about including that, but I decided to include, since Dom already mentioned it, other season 3 episodes of the original series, including The Way to Eden, the Space Hippies episode.
Yay, brother.
Head now to Eden. Yay, brother. I know it's terrible. And we've got all of these space hippies on the ship so this is like 1969 or 68, 69 when this comes out. And so the hippie movement is a real thing in the real world, and they're trying to incorporate that into the show, which is always a mistake when you're trying to incorporate contemporary stuff into a show set in a different century. And so they have this cringy hippie space lingo, just like in the real world, hippies would say things like groovy. The space hippies have their own alternative slang. It's like, oh, I reach, man, meaning I dig you.
Yes.
And then they go to this planet, Eden, which is sort of the Garden of Eden, but sort of isn't, because it all the food there is highly acidic and will kill you if you take a bite. And it'll even burn your feet if you walk on the grass.
That's the angel with the sword of fire, don't you know?
Well, maybe, but the whole thing is unclear why there would be a planet called Eden. I mean, it's bad.
Yes.
I'll just summarize it that way. Also bad from the 3rd season of the original series is And the Children Shall Lead, yes. Which is the one where you have San Francisco attorney Marvin Belli, who, when taking a break from jousting with the Zodiac Killer, decided to fill in on the show as the evil, friendly space angel that has these kids under his power. And it's also bad. But it was Majel Barrett's favorite episode because some of the kids are hers.
Oh, that's funny.
And then also from the 3rd season of the original series, The Omega Glory, which was a Gene Roddenberry plot and script that he had actually been around since the beginning of the show, that didn't get produced until the 3rd season. Basically, it's another political parable. They go to a world that is a knockoff of Earth, where Chinese communists took over the planet, and we have this society divided between the Yangs, meaning the Yankees, and the Coms, meaning the communists, and they've got an American flag, and they have this stirring speech that's like a mutated version of the Declaration of Independence or something, and Gene Roddenberry gets to preach about stuff, and it's really painful. So those are my original series picks. Next Generation. Well, I would include Justice, which is Wesley Crusher Crushes Flowers, which Father Cory mentioned.
Yep.
I could include Code of Honor, which is the one, or Angel One, which Dom mentioned. But instead, I'm going to pick the second episode, Naked Now.
Yes, that could have been.
Which is really painfully bad. And even the original series episode it's based on, The Naked Time, is painful. I find that one painful as well, but not as painful as The Naked Now, which is just horrifically bad. Another first season Next Generation episode that I would put on the list, Skin of Evil, which was written to kill off Tasha Yar. So this is the one where Tasha Yar gets killed by a giant oil slick. And it's, as they admit later on screen, a couple of seasons later, it was a meaningless death.
Yes.
Yep. This is a badly written episode.
And Lower Decks really took the steam out of it later on when they made fun of it, which was awesome.
Yeah. Another from the first season that's really horrendously bad is The Outrageous Akona. And here they introduce a character named Akona who is he just so badly wants to be Han Solo. And he so terribly is not. There is a multi-part, if you go, there's a website, a sort of parody website called The Agony Booth, where the guy who runs it does multi-part detailed reviews of bad television. And he's got like a 6-part epic takedown of The Outrageous Akona. One of the things he points out that is already a danger signal is the title, because anytime what the author of this website points out is that anytime you have to inform someone of the attributes a character has, it's a bad sign. Yeah. Because it represents weak writing, because why would you just tell someone this character is outrageous and that's how we need to regard them, when instead you could show us that they're outrageous. And so anytime a writer feels that they need to fall back on informed attributes, it's a sign of weak writing, and that happens in The Outrageous Akona. It is really embarrassingly bad. I thought about including on my list Shades of Grey, which was a clip show. It was like a season ender for the first season or something, first or second, and basically Riker is in sickbay and they're stimulating his brain to keep it active, and we get to see lots of clips of previous shows. And clip shows are generally very weak. The one notable exception is the clip show from Community, because for Community, what they decided to do was film all new clips of things we've never seen before, that they're flashing back to things we had never previously seen. But this is a normal clip show. I decided not to include it on my list, though, because it's just a clip show. It's mediocre, but it's not actively painful the way some of these others are. I also definitely would have mentioned Sub Rosa, and I thought about Move Along Home, but I decided not to, because there are other more painful Deep Space Nine episodes like The Storyteller. And then when we hit Voyager, I definitely would have picked Threshold, because salamander reproduction. I mean, not just they got turned into salamanders and had sex, they had babies that are still out there in the Gamma Quadrant. So just, wow, what were they thinking?
Yep.
So instead I'll pick, but Dom named that. So instead I'll pick Elogium, which is a Cass episode where she is the stage in her life where she needs to mate or won't be able to. And that's painful. And they don't exploit it. They don't have her mate. Right. You know, I mean, if you're going to do this Ocampan life cycle thing, you got to commit.
Right.
And then also from Voyager, another Kes episode from later, Fury, where after she's written out of the series on friendly terms and gives them the gift of knocking 10 years off their journey with her super psychic powers, she comes back and is mad as hell at everybody and blowing stuff up. And why? Why would you do this? You already had a graceful exit for this character. Why bring her back to wreck stuff and have this unpleasant thing happen?
Right.
So it just seemed worthless as an episode. Then moving on to Enterprise, Father Cory already mentioned These Are the Voyages, which is horrible for multiple reasons, including Trip's meaningless death. But also Dom mentioned A Night in Sickbay, which is not only, and I am including that on my list because it's not only bad for the reasons he mentioned, it is, as he said, I mean, it's basically Porthos the dog gets sick, and so Archer takes him to sickbay, and he and Dr. Phlox sit up all night with Porthos in a tank of goo, and they talk about stuff, and it's boring, and during the course of it. During the course of the boring conversation, Archer admits to Phlox that he's got the hots for T'Pol.
Yeah.
And Phlox's advice is like, well, obviously you can't act on this because rank, but just note it and move on. And it's like, okay, thank you. That involved unpleasant thoughts that then went nowhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, they even have a scene in it where he has a dream about her. It's like, yet more of that nonsense.
Yeah. So those are among my least favorites.
Very good. So there does seem to be, as I noted, a recurring what makes episodes bad theme is when they often either when they delve into contemporary social politics, whenever the contemporary happens to be contemporary politics, social issues, whatever.
Or when they start doing weird sex.
Yes, or the weird sex thing, which I don't know, maybe it goes to the origins of Star Trek in Gene Roddenberry's brain or what. I don't know. But well,
it's also you have characters that are disliked, like Wesley, like Bareil.
Yeah.
And of course, Wesley was a stand-in for what Roddenberry wanted to be, basically.
Right. He was a Mary Sue. So basically. So now we name all of these episodes, but there are I think at this point 800 episodes of Star Trek in various forms.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yep, more than.
And there are more bad episodes, obviously, but as we're Star Trek fans, we while we acknowledge the bad, there is still much good, right? There's still we've had an episode where we talked about our favorite episodes. So this is just to say, please don't take our dislike for certain things, including maybe things that you like.
We wouldn't have done
personal.
200 episodes if we hated Star Trek.
Exactly. And we do this as fun. We joked about it at the beginning, but this really was kind of fun to go through these episodes and say, okay, it's easy to say, what's your favorite episode? And I would say mine would be, yesterday's Enterprise. You can think of that in a heartbeat. What are episodes you hate and why?
Right. Exactly.
That takes a little more thought. That takes a little more.
Sometimes,
sometimes some of them just stand right out.
Yes, but it doesn't take much to recall them. Yes, exactly. So we'd love to hear from you, the listeners, what your least favorite Star Trek episodes were and why. Do you agree with us? And did we name some that you like, that you think we're wrong, that it's the worst? So we definitely want to hear your feedback on all of that. And so before we wrap up, we want to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Star Trek, including Susan P., David S., Jared H., Richard V., and Janelle K. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Star Trek and all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. So this has been a very special extra episode of the Secrets of Star Trek that we are glad to share with you. We would love to get your feedback. You can do that at sqpn.com/trek, our Facebook page, facebook.com/StarQuestMedia. Send an email to trek@sqpn.com or visit our new Discord community at sqpn.com/discord. And we'll be back next time when, of course, we will be discussing the next new episode of Star Trek Picard, fly me to the moon. Until then, Father Cory Sticha, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of Star Trek.
Thank you, Dom.
Jimmy Akin, thank you as well.
Thank you, and live long and prosper.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the secrets of Star Trek on StarQuest.